everybody. Welcome to Big Blend Radio with Nancy and Lisa. You know, we love old highways, and I was going to say haunted highways, and this is really true what we're talking about today, haunted highway. We're going to talk about the Jefferson Highway. This is something we talk about every fourth Thursday, and I encourage you to go to this website, jeffersonhighway.org. This is a very historic highway that was I'm going to say back 1916. And this was the editor of Better Homes and Magazine who said, hey, we got to do this highway. It's a very cool thing that's going to do good stuff for tourism and all kinds of things. And it became the very first vacation route. And we do have the president of the association, the Jefferson Highway Association, on the show, Roger Bell. So he's going to correct me very soon. But this highway became a big deal. And of course, you know, things change, world wars happen, and highways get forgotten. And now what's so cool is the highway is on this amazing revival, and we're so excited about it. Nancy and I are going to be doing a lot of more travel on this highway over the next few years. We're going to be doing a special magazine with it. We're going to be doing a special travel guide just on this highway that goes from Winnipeg, Canada, all the way to New Orleans, the Pines to Palm Highway. And we're also going to Winnipeg tonight, which is very exciting on today's show because we've been talking a lot about North America, obviously, and then United States of America, but we need to cross the border into Canada. So we've got a special guest, Matthew Comas, joining us. So I'm going to bring Roger Bell on the show, the president of the association. Roger, welcome back. And did I get anything wrong, or did I get anything right even about the Jefferson Highway?
Well, Lisa, it was actually formed in the fall of 1915, but
I knew it.
Obviously it didn't really start moving forward until 1916. So I'll let you slide a little bit on that
one. Hey, listen, it's only a few months, right? It's only a few months. It's only a few months.
But yes, we're the highway has a great amount of history, heritage. It is a true Americana route, and we are really excited about the revival and being out in the road in the last month on a few places. It's always exciting when you go in a place and you start talking to somebody and they're starting to already hear about things that are moving forward before we even talk to them the first time. So yes, things are moving, and we're glad you're part of that, Lisa and Nancy.
Thank you. We're excited, dude. I mean, seriously, I'm like, I have to say,
we can't
dude,
wait
because
to start.
this is like the most epic road trip thing now.
We're going to do it.
So we need
it's going to be the road trip.
It is the road trip, and I think it was one of the first road trips for our country, right? And then going over the border, which is a big deal.
Yes, it was one of the first highways as such in the country, and arguably the first international highway going into Canada.
Wow. And so that leads us to our guest today, Matthew Comas. He's the founder of Winnipeg Ghost Walk. He's also the author of the best-selling books Haunted Winnipeg and Haunted Manitoba. Roger tracked him down because he was like, I'm looking for people with, about ghosts in Canada and Winnipeg, of course. So I encourage you to go to his website, winnipegghostwalk.com. Welcome, Matthew. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me tonight.
Hey, this is great. We're excited. You're our first Canadian guest on the show talking about the Jefferson Highway. We're so excited about this. And Nancy wants to know if you found our relatives, like floating in a hotel somewhere or something, or in a back alley is probably where they are. But, I'm just saying. I just, it's so exciting that you do ghost walks. I know primarily over fall and October, but you've written these books. And people can call you and say, hey, we got a group. But what was it that led you to doing ghost walks and taking people on tours?
It was kind of by accident, to tell you the truth. I've been doing tours for now, I guess, about 20 years. And the number one question you get on tours, and I think this is true probably around the world, it's not, oh, who lived here, how old this building is. People always ask you, is it haunted? It doesn't matter what the tour is about. People will always ask. The history's nice, but does it have a ghost? So I realized there's obviously a lot of interest in it. And the first night I started doing ghost tours, it was cold, it was raining. I thought I would show up, wait around a few minutes and go home, and 20 people came out in the cold rain to go on the ghost tour. So
Yeah. Mhm.
See, but it's true.
It's
We went,
interesting.
Nancy's into it. I
I'm
think,
so into it. Yeah.
I,
Because I think that people want to connect with the past. And that's one way of making history become alive for them. But connecting with the past with a relative is something that is, I don't know, it just calls you.
You know,
Mhm.
and giving tours in my area on
Mm.
this over the year, and I kind of happened on it myself. I went on a tour first time. I was traveling and I was in Charleston, South Carolina,
mm,
Mhm.
and I went on a tour there. Thought see something to do in the evening. Of course, I like history, as you know, and I thought, well, it'd be interesting to go on this. And what I saw is it was really fun. You learned a lot. You learned a lot about things that were not always common. And I just saw that this is a great opportunity when I got back to try it, not knowing if it would succeed. And now this is the 18th year that I've been involved in tours here, and it
wow.
just grows. And people are just brought in so much by the ghost and the fun and whatever it is. But it's a way really I found to people leave, they learn a lot. They really
Yeah.
and they appreciate the community, and I think even more. And I'm sure it's the same way in Winnipeg.
Mm.
yeah,
I
for
think
sure.
I
It's
think it's
almost
everywhere.
a way to
Good.
teach history, and people don't even realize you're teaching them history, sort of.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I love
You
that.
just see the looks on people, and there's always some fun element. I try to make, I try to add a little bit of fun elements to them, every once in a while, and we take some crazy pictures during our tour, for fun, and we have some other things, but it's every one of them are a little bit different. And the guest anyway, I leave a lot of times. I leave them, and I found them to be some of my most fun tours, just because the interaction you get with your guest and the questions I think you get are they're interested, So
Mhm.
Well, I think what's great about these tours is it gets kids interested in history. It gets, everybody having this story and
know.
like, ooh, and you become more observational and you start like looking to see if you can see one and, a ghost or, a
I don't
spirit.
think it
And
matters. Even the age doesn't. And that's another great
no,
thing. You're exactly right. You can have teenagers
Mhm.
to senior citizens. It doesn't matter. They're all interested in the ghost stories, and it's a
Yeah.
way to really connect. I think families, because the whole families go on a lot of these tours and all ages, and
mm,
I find them quite good because a lot of times some of my other tours I don't get to see some of those younger kids or some of those other elements, but anyway, it's so. I'm really excited to have Matthew on with us,
yeah, we got
and
Canadian ghosts to talk about. I mean, and
uh,
this is exciting. This is exciting because we're talking about ghosts and hotels. Roger, you said you
I
wanted to
love
talk
it.
about hotels because this is such a big important part of
well,
the history of the highway.
as we're bringing back this route, one of the things we look at compared to, let's say, for example, Route 66, you don't
Mhm.
have, there's some interesting places on the route. Obviously, lodging, a lot of the lodging was motels or tourist courts or stuff like that. But on this Jefferson Highway area, you got a lot of really iconic grand hotels and historic hotels. Some of them, they're no longer hotels today. They're still there, but some of them that are still, you can check in today. When I toured the whole route, most of the whole route in 2017, I stayed in historic lodging all the way. And it's almost everyone had a fun ghost story to it, which was
Oh, cool.
interesting to me. And
Awesome.
so that's, I think that's, as people go up the Jefferson Highway and tour it, these are some of the fun things you can go out in the evening. For example, if you're going to be in Winnipeg, you can look up Matthew and his site and go on one of his tours in the evening while you're there. It's something to do at night. It's a lot of fun.
I think, and then
Awesome.
you have a cocktail, right? And then you go in your room at night and go,
Whatever you
okay,
want to do.
what
So
was
you
that?
can-
What was that bump in the night, right?
Yeah,
You might want to go
because
ghost hunting the rest of the night. I don't know.
I know.
I
No,
know.
you start photographing everything. Hey, listen, the digital cameras are like a big deal for this. And we've been in historic homes
Yeah.
with audio recording stuff, and we've done our own weird, stuff on this. And listen, it really does make you listen and see and use all your senses, and
Mhm.
that includes your imagination. I'm just going to say that, right?
Oh, yeah.
It does.
No
Well,
doubt.
And I
yeah.
think it's so exciting. So Matthew, going to tell us a little bit. Let's go to Winnipeg, because many of us haven't been there. I've heard all about the Red River, that it flows backwards, which means you guys have got some crazy supernatural powers going on. I've heard all kinds of things about
What's
the
up with
peg,
that?
as my friend calls it. But tell us a little bit about Winnipeg, and what the history is like, because it seems to me like it's quite metropolitan, even though you guys do have prairie land, right?
Yeah, for sure it is. And yeah, you mentioned the Red River. It is, yeah, unique sort of in that it flows, as you said, for most people it seems kind of backwards. But that river was the link to Hudson Bay, where a lot of the earliest settlers came from, and headed down, all the way from Hudson Bay to Winnipeg, which is right in the prairies. And from there, like indigenous people, Native Americans have been here for thousands and thousands of years. But
Mm.
the settlers kind of went from sort of a village to the third largest city in Canada in just a few decades. So it went from a couple hundred people to tens of thousands very, very quickly.
Wow.
Kind of like similar to Chicago in some ways. Sometimes it was even called the Chicago of the North.
Really?
Hmm.
Yeah,
Wow.
I've heard
Is that because of the water?
I've
Oh,
heard
is
that
it-
mentioned, especially like in the early days of Jefferson Highway, that it was going to be the new Chicago or something.
Oh, wow. Huh.
Yeah, we never reached the population size, but we definitely, even some of the building architecture is quite similar to Chicago.
Okay, but do you have the blues? Like, now that's important. The blues music has to happen if you're going to be
Well,
Chicago.
they've got a lot. They've got some music up there. That's another show, Lisa.
Yeah.
I know, but like, you
Not
talk
so
about
much
Chicago.
blues, but we definitely have a pretty strong local music culture. And Winnipeg is some ways an isolated city. It's 7 hours usually to drive to Minneapolis.
Yeah.
And that's the closest
Okay.
large city. There's no other cities of any
Wow.
real size within several hours drive. So it kind of makes it unique in some ways because
Kind
it
of
is,
a hub, up
Yeah.
there is to go to and I, one of the things, when we look at the history of the Jefferson Highway, is it's starting there, and a lot of the early highway tours, what we call sociability runs, where the premier Manitoba would and others would come all the way down the route and go all the way to New Orleans. A lot of them started at the Fort Garry Hotel there. And I know that we had a previous podcast a few months ago where we had our friend Bill Johnson and his wife Jane. That's where they stayed, and they lived. They left there, and I showed them a picture of that group starting out, and that's where they parked that morning in that same area. So it was just kind of cool. But that hotel I've never stayed there, but I've heard so many great things about it, and it's my
Is it
understanding
haunted?
it has a little
Matthew,
bit
is
of
it
stories to
haunted?
yeah,
Is it haunted?
definitely has some ghost stories. It is very much a landmark building in the city. And still, as you said, a place that you could have stayed when the highway opened, and you can still stay there to this day. It's chateau style. Looks very much almost like a large castle, and it was a railway hotel. And they do think it's haunted, and sort of got off to a little bit of a rough start because the railway's owner, Charles Hayes, was returning from England, and unfortunately selected the Titanic as his return
Oh.
vessel. So you can guess how that story ends. So unfortunately,
Oopsie.
he was still. This was just before the hotel was. It hadn't quite opened yet. So he was tragically killed at the beginning, and then during construction,
Wow.
a worker fell down the elevator shaft.
Uh-oh.
It was kind of a little
Otis
bit rough
went
start
down.
to be
Sorry.
haunted, Yeah.
Hmm.
Wow.
Wow.
So the guy goes down, and so that's that whole mystery of there is like, okay, so does he ride with you? And I mean, how does he haunt people?
Well, they don't know if he's necessary. I haven't heard about him being in the elevator. The most common
Cool.
that would be spooky. There is sometimes they see a person on the roof, which they wonder if that's him. Security guards tend to spot this person at night, and of course they're concerned, but they can never find anyone on the roof. As soon as they get to the roof, it's always empty, but yet they still see this person standing up there. And in fact, the hotel print shop is still on the roof. It has like their original printing presses. It's very difficult to access now, but back when they used to have to print everything, in house. Of course, now it's so different. But
Wow. So
That's
when you
cool.
take people on tours, are they able to see I mean, is it mostly like the downtown? Tell us about that. Like, is it the historic downtown, or are you seeing like, we've never been to Winnipeg, Nancy and I, that we know of, but we know we have family there. So you
Yeah.
may have experienced one of our relatives as a ghost somewhere, but is it like a historic, quaint downtown? What's the downtown? Or do you have city scrapers, like, the big skyscraper things? And then, I mean, do you
it's
have
quite
that
a
historic
mixture.
charm?
It's quite a mixture. There's historic buildings, there's much more modern office buildings. Our downtown's fairly big, so it kind of sprawls out a little bit. It has entertainment area like the main hockey arena and theaters. But the area that I do, not all, but a lot of my tours is called the Exchange District, which is a huge collection of historic buildings, over 100 historic buildings.
Wow.
And that's where a lot of the ghost stories are. The Hotel Fort Garry is actually not right in that neighborhood, but that's kind of a focal point for downtown. And that's where a lot of your restaurants and bars and theaters and stores are, is in that neighborhood, the Exchange District.
Is there some kind of room? Is there some kind of special room in the Fort Garry that supposedly has some stories to it, if I remember right? Or is that just...
Yes, room 202, which apparently is actually really difficult to book into because so many people want to stay in the haunted room, especially in October. The story behind it is that shortly after the hotel opened, a newlywed couple basically on their honeymoon booked into room 202. The wife started feeling unwell, so her husband went out to go to the pharmacy to try to get her some medicine, and on the way back from the pharmacy was hit and killed by a car. And she is waiting and waiting in the room, and eventually there's a knock on the door, and it's the hotel manager who has to break this tragic news to her. So she went from being a new bride to a widow in just hours, really. And that she remains at the hotel, but that night, overcome with grief, she hangs herself in the room's closet.
Oh, geez.
And there's when they start getting these reports of, people seeing this woman in the room, or hotel staff have talked about dark stains, that like blood stains, almost they've cleaned and they reappear in the closet, and things
that's
like that over the years. So.
Oh,
so
the bloodstain
booked up
thing
in
is
October.
weird.
Then,
Yeah.
The bloodstain, the
funny.
bloodstain thing, we do a show on the National Parks Arts Foundation, all their artists and residents in national parks across the country every first Friday. And one of them stayed in Gettysburg, and we went to see this house, and the house is everybody knows it's haunted, and it's actually, you can rent it on Airbnb, but this house, he said, when he was there, they knew they could feel it, him and his wife, and he sent me photos. And I'm sorry, I know it could be old house stuff, but all of a sudden this house oozed what looks like blood on the side of just one wall. Just this blood coming down. And I have the photos. It's creepy and it's weird. And when
Matthew,
you
have you ever
go,
had people take pictures and show you things and on your tours,
it's
stuff like
weird.
that?
Yeah, people often take photos. I don't know if we've ever seen blood stains, but definitely lights and shadows and,
Yeah.
effects like that for sure.
Do you get those, Roger? I mean, and I
Yeah,
want to go to
I've got
Roger with
some.
you.
Yeah,
You're in Oklahoma. Tell everybody where people can
I,
access
I,
your tours.
I'm in Muskogee, Oklahoma, which is a much smaller community than Winnipeg. But we were, Winnipeg and Muskogee was original cardinal point. There were 14 communities on the route that were original cardinal points where the route had to go through as it was established. And my hometown, Muskogee, was one, but we're only about 40,000 in population. But we were a community that blew up around right before statehood in Oklahoma, around 1900, 1907, and at one time was larger than the city of Tulsa, Oklahoma. And we have a lot of history and legends here, a lot of Western outlaw history here. And more deputy marshals killed within a 100-mile radius of Muskogee than anywhere in American history.
Wow.
So there's just a lot of stories here. And as I started giving tours about 18 years ago, not really knowing where it would lead me, and they've become so popular and that typically I don't know that I've ever gone on a tour in recent history that have not sold out that I've
Wow.
given on the haunted area, including this year. But we have one of the things that we have here is a historic hotel here called the Seavers Hotel. It was built by a gentleman by the name of Captain Frederick Seavers, who had been a pioneer in Indian Territory, what is now eastern Oklahoma. And he had gained a lot of wealth through his interaction with the Creek Muskogee Nation tribe here. And he had fought actually with them during the Civil War, and they gave him basically head rights. And he built a lot of his wealth through that. And he was getting up in age, and he made a decision that he was going to build something lasting. And he knew some of his friends were building hotels, so he wanted to build the grandest hotel he could. So in 1910, he started out, he moved his actual own house from the site of where it was and moved it, which it still stands. And he spent almost a good portion of his wealth and mortgaged the rest to build this hotel. In 1910, it was about $500,000, which was quite a bit of money at that
That's
time.
a lot back then.
It had everything.
Wow.
It had everything first class. It was 10 stories tall. It had about 225 rooms in it.
Whoa.
And of course, at that time, a lot of people thought Muskogee was going to be one of the biggest, if not the biggest city in the state of Oklahoma. And very interesting that Matthew just said about the gentleman passing away and haunting the hotel. Here we got a similar story. Captain Seavers put so much passion into that hotel, and he got to see in April of 1912, he got to see the Seavers crest flag flown over the top of the hotel. And within about a week, he died. And he never got to see the grand opening. He never got to see the hotel running. They weren't even. There was a lot of going around, and I worked in the building because later on it was restored it was a hotel up until in the mid 1970s here, and then it became kind of a rough place, longer term residence, stuff like that. And we just, and it was restored during the 1980s by a bank that I went to work for. And I used to work
I
in the
thought
building.
you were running the rough place, Roger. Come on.
And it was like, okay, I would be there working late at night, and you just kind of felt edgy. I don't know what it was, but
Mm.
and then like years later, I'd hear all these stories about things going on, and some of the things people would just all of a sudden mysterious things would be missing, that was there one day or another. There was strange noises. We had these really
Mm.
cool stairs that kind of go around in a semicircle, and to go up to the ballroom, which was where I was working. And and you would hear people footsteps going up at sometimes, and you go, okay, who's coming upstairs? And there would be nobody there.
Mm.
No, cool.
And people would say they would see somebody outside at night. It looked like a man dressed up in period outfits and stuff, and it's just he would just
Hmm.
disappear sometimes. And there was a lot of story. But then there's another story in this hotel that in 1931 there was the Seavers Hotel murders that
Uh-oh.
occurred. It was national news. It was in all newspapers in the country. Some gentlemen from Connecticut came into town. They were loan brokers, and came in to check on. This is right after the stock market crash or time period, and they came to check on some investments. They checked into the hotel, and within a few hours, they were no more, and their bodies
Oh,
were
Mm-mm.
found
wow.
ground. But there was one gentleman that was with them was found gagged and bound to a chair, and the rest were all dead. And
Wow.
these were pretty important people in Connecticut, and they, the seventh floor was where this all occurred, and about 4 or 5 years ago, that area was totally being the people had moved out of there. It was under renovations. And I had some new people up there that were friends of mine, and they kept telling me, Roger, so there's up on the seventh floor up here. We keep getting some really strange deals going on up here. And I said, well, hate to tell you, but you're on the floor where the murders happened.
Oh, no.
Dude.
And,
So-
they actually did a little bit of a video about some of the things that were going on up there. I haven't heard about it recently, but we gave some of our tours up there on the seventh floor, and also the basement, which has a lot of real fun activity that goes on there.
Wow.
So, every once in a while, we'll some of our tours will get some kind of strange picture, or somebody will hear something. It's always quite
That's
interesting.
so cool about it. I think that's the thing is it's something where, you can experience something through a photo or a sound or, and if you're staying in there, that's a whole other, you're going to experience it. But I want to go to Matthew in Winnipeg on these tours. Have you had any evidence come through? Have you experienced a ghost or a spirit, or have your guests on your tours experienced something in photos and that kind of thing?
So not at one of the hotels, but I do a lot of tours with a local museum. It's called Seven Oaks House, and it's the oldest house in Winnipeg, and it would have been a farmhouse initially, and it's built in the 1850s. So for Winnipeg, that's quite old. I know for some places on the highway that wouldn't be nearly as old. And there, I used to work as a guide, not doing ghost tours. It was a summer student job. And we would hear, again, you would hear things. You'd hear footsteps upstairs when you knew no one else was there. Or sometimes we'd hear something smashing, which if you work in a museum, that's kind of the worst sound to hear.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
If you
It's
want
like
to
there
stay
with the artifact.
employed.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, but we'd never find anything. And then one day I was working with my coworker who firmly does not believe in ghosts, and we put down some ant poison on the grounds that morning, and we hear these footsteps on the front porch. It is the big wraparound porch around the whole house. So I went to tell the person, because sometimes people would come walk their dogs. It's located in a park, and I wanted to make sure they didn't take their dog onto the lawn because the ant poison. And I go on the porch and no one's there. And my coworker follows 2 seconds later and he's like, "Oh, where are they?" I'm like, "Yeah, I thought I heard someone on the porch." And he's like, "For sure they were walking on the porch." So he goes one direction, I go the other. We search the whole property and nobody is there. No one is
That's
there. And
wild.
both of us 100% are positive someone was walking down that porch.
That's crazy. See, that's when you kind of have to go, okay, there's more to life than us, right? You know what I mean?
Mhm.
We've
It's
had a
that
couple
those
of
moments.
we've had a couple of really interesting deals. You know, one of them was not really on a tour, but it's a building that we give tours in. It's a historic home that was built in 1895 in Indian Territory at that time, out on the
Mm.
open prairie. Now it's all around. It's an historic home that is called the Thomas Foreman Home here in Muskogee. And we were, I was showing a new director who didn't stay with us very long of a museum here. And this is part of her job, was to oversee this facility. And so, you know, I was telling her about the haunted tours we give and different things. And I was also telling her about the building and all the great history of this that's involved in this, because everything in this house is original. I mean, it's, you know, a lot of historic buildings, you bring back things, but this one, the people just left everything, and it's got history
Oh, wow.
in every corner. And they had art there from all over the world. They were prolific people that traveled the world, and they were friends of artists. And the director was making some, I thought, you know, kind of some comments on some things. And there was a picture hanging on, actually, it was hanging on a door. And we were leaving the room. We went to another room, and we're quite a ways from this. We're you know, a couple of rooms down from this, and all of a sudden we hear this loud crash, and I'm like, okay, what was that? Of course, I've given ghost tours here. I know the reputation of the home. And we go back in the room, and the picture that was hanging very sturdily on this door is now probably 10 to 12 feet away from the door in the middle of the room.
Ooh, dude.
And there's no explanation that I can give to anybody about how that got that far.
No,
And
no.
it freaked. We got out of there pretty quick.
I'm going to tell you. Okay, so I want to bring Louisiana into this. So Natchitoches, Louisiana, you know, we love Natchitoches, and everyone, you've got to go to Natchitoches. So go to the website, natchitoches.com. It's NATCHITOCHES. It's just, it just, it sounds different than how you write it. It is the most historic site, or, you know, most historic city in the state of Louisiana, and on the trail. So we go to Natchitoches for the very, very first time, and we stayed at the Sweet Cane Inn, bed and breakfast right off of, actually, right. I mean, you could walk to the Jefferson Highway Park from there, and that was said to be a little bit haunted. And I was even just on their website, and they don't promote it, but there's spirits in there. And like I was saying before we went on the show, like it's one of, you know, it's that old where you have chains on the toilet, you know, and they're way up there, the cisterns at the top. But like there was like a vibe in that place. But we went from there and we went down to Alexandria, and I know Alexandria is also on the highway. And we also, you know, so we went to the Bayou Rapide Cemetery. Also, everybody, the American Cemetery in Natchitoches is the oldest cemetery, and there's a whole other thing going on there. We went to the Bayou Rapide Cemetery in Alexandria, and I got stuck in the back seat of the car, and I couldn't get out. I got locked in by my the seatbelt locked me in the car, and they had to get me out of the car. No, seriously. The other place that's weird there is the Kent Plantation, has a whole other vibe. There's no way that place isn't haunted.
We went there on our tour. We were in Natchitoches in 2019 for a conference, and we went to the Kent Plantation. And you're right, there is kind of a strange vibe.
There's no way it's not. Then, okay, so then we go back the next time we went back to Natchitoches, Arlene like said, "Oh, we got to go do like the no man's land." Arlene Gould, and everyone knows Arlene on our shows,
Right.
and she's like, "Go on, you girls are going to go to Manny. You're going to go to all these different towns, and then you're going to go to DeRidder." Okay, hello, DeRidder. Like seriously. Okay, so we went to Leesville, DeRidder, and in DeRidder they have an amazing museum. By the way, you guys have to go check that out. I think it's a Beauregard. It's Beauregard Parish. Anyway, I know it's Beauregard Parish, but this museum downtown by the railroad is insanely cool. But down the street is the Gothic jail. This place, I mean, this is a different kind of hotel.
Dude, that's
okay, this
creepy.
is the hotel. This is the hotel for people that did something.
No, it's creepy.
And when you go in, it's a Gothic building. And when you go in, it's a circular staircase, just like if you're going in a lighthouse.
No.
And so what I didn't know this, but
Dude.
the jail people, the jailer, whatever the head dude and his family lives in the jail building.
With the prisoners.
So you go in the door and that's where their family would have been. And the baby's little crib is there. And I'm like, what? And then you go in the kitchen and then they're showing like, oh no, these two guys who killed a taxi driver and threw him in the car or whatever, pushed it into a swamp, right? So these two guys were in there and they worked in the kitchen. You walk through the kitchen and then you go in the middle and they have this big noose hanging down to represent the fact that these two men were hanged. And then their bodies were taken out the front door and the entire town comes out. Okay, because back in the day when anybody was hanged, people came out and
like
had a picnic,
party,
right?
Yeah.
With their kids.
And as Bob Dylan may say, it's the Bear Mountain Picnic. But anyway, so they come out and they watch this entire thing, right? So anyway, we go through this whole cell thing and they just started renovating and fixing this up and starting Halloween things. And you guys have to check this Gothic jail out. Man, it's crazy. You go up the stairs. I swear to God, somebody put their hand on my head. I could feel there's no way you're going to tell me anybody else touched my head. Like, you know, when someone not just pat your head, they like when, hello, little girl, like kind of thing. And then you go up to the top and it's freaky. There's a women's cell and the women used to hang their boobies out. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, but they did out the window to get candy from, the guys and whatever, and just for la fun. So then they put the women inside a cell within the cell so that they couldn't go out the window. And so, I mean, because women were naughty in this jail, but
I don't know about this story. I have to check this one.
No, this is
but
cool.
I'm just saying,
It's
this is
so
my
funny.
hotel story of Louisiana.
No,
But
but
it's
Well,
it's funny.
the Grand Bentley in Alexandria, which is one of it's a treasure on the route, and it, it's supposedly haunted. It has a big staircase when you go up the lobby there, and somebody supposedly fell off the balcony there and died. And also the Mr. Bentley himself died in the hotel in 38, and he's supposed to haunt it. So it's one really cool hotel. Now, Matthew, there's another hotel there that has a lot of history on the Jefferson Highway. There's the Marlboro. Is that one that you know anything about?
Yeah, the Marlboro Hotel was built again to be kind of a luxury hotel. Unfortunately for the owners, they opened in 1914. Winnipeg had been going through a huge boom. The hotel opens and promptly First World War is declared. The boom goes bust, and they're out of business in 6 months.
Bummer.
It became an army barracks. I think maybe the most comfortable army barracks in the country at that point. But after the war, it reopens as a hotel, and it was a fancy hotel. They had Italian marble and Tiffany light fixtures, Oriental rugs.
They advertised quite a bit in our Jefferson Highway magazines at that time.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's neat to know. So it was a fancy place to stay, and they had a really famous guest at one point, Sir Winston Churchill. Now, I'd love to tell you if he's haunting the hotel. Unfortunately, that's not the case. As cool as
He'd tell you if he's haunting it. He'd be like, I'm here.
Yeah,
boys and
that would
girls.
be quite an attraction. But the room they named in his honor after he stayed there, which is one of their banquet rooms, and it's still called the Churchill Room to this day. There's definitely people who've seen a ghost in that room, and one
See?
occasion the employee maybe wasn't the best employee because he would go into that room basically to take a nap, have a snooze. And in hotels, sometimes you're working late. So he would push
Yeah.
together a few of the chairs, grab an extra pillow and lay down for a bit. And he had done this, he said, a few times until one time something just abruptly woke him up and he went from asleep to wide awake, opens his eyes, and right above him, he said, was a woman in kind of a long, older style dress. And he just ran from the room, and you could only get him back in there when there was a banquet on now, and lots of people and all the lights, and many people have seen this woman in the basement and in the Churchill room and kind of throughout the building.
Wow. That's
Well,
wild.
that's
I mean,
cool.
Is it still a hotel today?
It is, yeah, it still is a hotel today. It's a
cool.
combination. There are some people in his residence and a little bit different role than it once was, but it is still, you still can get a room there and stay there.
Ooh, she's gonna walk
I'm gonna
the
have to go to
halls.
Glenn Burrows, who's our England correspondent, and he does family history and leads tours in Norfolk, England, and see if he can connect more, because he found out his family is in Canada and ended up
Yeah.
going to Canada to meet them. This is like, and it's all from one church document, like from way back when. And it goes back to history of the 1812 war. And I mean, it's crazy. And then he found this whole family that he has. It's insane. And he's been to Canada twice over this. So, this is, Roger, we have to do a family history thing now,
Yeah.
because this is a whole other thing,
Well, there's so
families
much.
traveling,
And we go through this all the time. You open one door and you get another one. But one of the interesting things to me is two of the longest running holiday festivals in the country are both on the Jefferson Highway route. We mentioned Natchitoches, the Christmas festival's coming up, which has been going forever. But Anoka, Minnesota, which is just on the suburb west of Minneapolis, is considered the Halloween capital of the world. And they promote that. And they started all in 1920 when I think some kids were causing a bunch of doing tricking, and stuff like Halloween they did back in the day, caused a bunch of problems. So some civic leaders there came up with the idea to do a celebration where all of them could be doing all this together. And they formed a Halloween committee. This is 1920. And so this is the time of the main period of the Jefferson Highway. And they started this. They came up with the idea to do one of the early Halloween parades and celebration. They've been doing celebrations there every year since 1920. The only exceptions have been during World War II, I think, maybe a few years, and obviously COVID. But outside of that, they've always had a festival and a parade. And they also have some interested haunted history because interesting enough, the state mental asylum was in their community, and that building is still there, and they give a lot of ghost tours and stuff there. So I'm looking forward to the day when I can actually get back up to Anoka. I did not spend much time on my one trip there, and it'd be cool to be there in the Halloween time. Right.
That's cool. That's cool. I mean that about Jack Nicholson because of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, but
I know, but so do you think that you have to be open to see a ghost? And so some people will see a ghost in a room with another person who will never see that ghost because they're closed-minded against that.
Okay, but wait. Okay, so Matthew, you and your coworker heard a ghost.
Yeah.
Whether or not you believed it, right? Or did you believe it then?
It's one of those things, it's hard. I guess it's hard to know. And I find with the tours, some people come on absolutely believing and other people
Mm.
the exact opposite. And I
Yeah,
think for tours and for the books, to some extent, it doesn't really matter. I think people get something out of it, whether they're a diehard believer or complete
yeah,
skeptic, or most people I'd say are somewhere in between those two.
Yeah.
Um, but I think they can still hear. People like hearing, the ghost stories. We think of, gathering around the campfire.
Exactly.
Stories.
That's exactly the way I'd put it. I mean, people just love. I mean, when you're a little kid, you gather around the campfire and hear ghost stories. You know, they're just
yeah,
part
it's
of
cool.
Americana. They're part of probably not even Americana. They're part of
Well-
everyone in the world probably tells ghost stories from time to time. And,
No, but it's how you
Yeah.
connect to history. I think
Mhm.
if history teachers could get their nose out of the book instead of always reading a book in front of the class about history, and they told it in
yeah, Nancy, you're right on there. When I, you know, when
Yeah.
I
you
give
know what I'm you know where I'm
history
going here.
tours, I can give people. I can talk to people about it, or I can write to people about it. But it doesn't. But when you're actually giving and you're out and you can see
Huh?
the building, you're in the building where these events happen,
Yeah,
or it just brings it.
That's why we're doing the highway. I mean,
Yeah, and that's
Yeah,
because so
exactly.
much happened. It gives you
because
this
you can-
direction.
you can
You know?
feel like if you let yourself, and I have to make that point, if you let yourself feel when you go into a room, if you say to yourself, let me feel a presence or not, okay? Just open that. Sometimes you will, most time you won't, but once in a while, you're gonna go, D, I gotta chill.
Dude, Matthew, welcome to our woo-woo show.
No, no,
Matthew,
because
Matthew, I've got a question for you too. Is
Mm.
just you wrote a book on haunted Manitoba. It's not just Winnipeg. Is there anything else that comes to your mind? Not sure how familiar you are with the route as it comes in that area. Is there anything that comes to your mind that just
Yeah, I did look at some of the other smaller communities. And that's not to say there aren't ghost stories from that area, but I haven't been able to collect too many. Some of the areas tend to be a little bit more conservative, religious conservative, and they don't always even if they have experiences, they won't necessarily
tell you
I
about
guess just tell you about
keep
it.
them under wraps?
So we don't have
Ooh.
too many other stories along the route.
Oh,
Other
but I have
parts,
a question on the religious
Okay.
part on that. With
yeah,
the religious
dude, don't
communities where
even.
they no, because I gotta go and I'm sorry, I keep going, no, we've been watching the Vicar of Dibley.
The
Sorry.
Father,
No,
Son, and
no.
Holy
Everything-
Ghost.
No,
If you
but is
believe in the Holy Ghost, why don't you believe in the non-Holy Ghost?
I don't
Well,
we're gonna get
Oopsie.
emails, Nancy, now.
Oopsie.
I'll
No,
tell
but-
you this much: one of our most popular sites in Archer is actually in a church.
See, there you go. See,
And
but I
they
wanna
let us go into the church because they
Yeah.
have the same thing.
well,
So
Matthew, what was it? Was
See?
it Quaker? Like what happened in when like what was I'm just
Uh-oh.
clueless on this because, and so I know we have to go to Winnipeg and we're going to, but
Yeah.
like in America, like if where we were based, we were in the Southwest, so I'm always looking Native American, and Spanish, and Mexican, and you know, then and Portuguese, and you know all of that. But come back east of this country, then it's Quaker, and like we went to places Quaker, like they don't even have. There's no
Mm-mm.
paintings because they did
Mm-mm.
silhouettes because then it's not as egotistical. Like mirrors are not allowed, and like it's like this whole
Mhm.
other culture. So what was it in Canada in regards to that religious side that you were talking about? That
it's similar. There's sort of conservative Mennonite communities that
Okay.
tend to be in the south of the province.
Mm.
And and it's interesting you mentioned a church being on your tour, because churches are a few of the only places that have asked not to be on the tour, not to be in the book. So I, then respect the wishes. But
Oh,
it's
wow.
interesting. A little bit
Mm.
north of where the highway starts, there's an area called the Interlake, because it's between Lake Winnipeg and Lake Manitoba, and it has the highest population of Icelandic settlers outside of Iceland. And they embrace ghost stories. So there's many ghost stories from those farms, from those rural communities, but you travel just an hour south. And as I said, there may be ghost stories. People might just not have been willing to share them too with me.
Oh, wow.
You
But
know, that's interesting. It really is, because I mean, our experience with ghosts, like we rented on purpose a haunted cabin,
and it
and
was
we
haunted.
thought, and we thought it was really funny to do, because we were like, no, that's yes, you know, that doesn't, no. And the lady who lived in the cabin before was Native American, and she had a dead coyote head nailed to the front of the door to keep out evil spirits. And we thought, well, now that's
She's from
funny.
Oklahoma, by the way, Roger.
Yeah.
Okay.
So no, so we thought that's funny. And then so we moved in, and it was like what, within 48 hours, we're like, uh-oh.
Action. I mean, and I didn't even
No.
understand, but actually the entire property,
And
the
your
entire
mind,
property was.
no, and your mind is still, no, this is not happening, even though you see it and you feel it and it's there. Like, no, no, no,
See,
this
got the
is
no-nos.
we got the no-nos. And then when we talked to the owner, I saw a vision at night over my face, and I have a cat sleeping with me who hisses and growls and leaves. So I'm thinking, okay, it's not just me, the cat's upset. I see this face. So I go the next morning to the landlord. I'm like, I know this is woo and crazy and stupid. And I show him, I'm an artist, so I draw a picture of it. And he goes, oh my God, that's my dad. And he's buried on the property. Okay.
Wow.
I'm so out of here. No, no. Like,
No, we
way.
actually had psychics go in there, and it was an offshore gambling hall for the mafia. It
Yeah,
also
there-
was part of
all
a
sorts of-
prostitution setup that was out there.
Mm.
It's also a Native American burial ground, and anyway, that was just a crazy thing. I could go on and on this property, but we experienced so much, and I think
And we're like,
once you
whoa.
are open to it, then, and I wonder about that. When you both were talking about your tours, that you're going to get people that are opened up a little bit, you know,
Yeah,
to
you see
it.
a lot of skeptics. You see
Mhm.
people that, and there's some people that want my tour to be quote a paranormal tour with more equipment and all that. And I sometimes
Oh.
cringe on that, but
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
don't. Some tours I've given, I've been a little bit more adventurous, let's just say.
Mm.
You know, we talked about on the route Bell Star. You know, I've
Yeah.
actually given a tour to Bell Star's grave in the middle of the night. The
Cool.
famous woman outlaw, and that was
Cool.
really a great tour. But one of the questions I have for Matthew is just writing about it. How do you? I mean, you wrote. I assume it's been a few years you wrote these books, but I know writing is a big process. And did you have? How did you get all these stories, and what was the process like for you?
Yeah, that is sometimes the challenge. And it came about, I'd started doing the tours first. And I would say some is talking to people who work in the buildings, live in the buildings, own the buildings. And for my books, I chose to only do recognizable buildings or historic buildings, because I read some ghost ones and people would talk about the haunted house or a haunted store or something.
Yeah.
And it could be Manitoba, it could be Oklahoma, it could be Louisiana, it could be anywhere, because there's nothing to tie it to place.
Right.
So talking to people is my main go, but since you can't obviously find all the stuff, but going through newspaper archives. And they've been publishing ghost stories again. It's not like they're new. You know, basically, you know, since newspapers began, they would carry people talking about haunted houses. When
Exactly.
they were brand new, and there was the story of a haunted house when I think the city was only, or the village was a year old, one of the houses was supposed to be haunted
Wow.
already.
Yeah. See, but don't you think
So-
kids also do it?
Wow.
Like, there's a
but-
house and you go, a witch is in there. How
Yeah.
didn't we all that have that
But-
as kids? Like down the
Yeah,
road,
but-
that's the witch's house, and it's it's the woman with the cats.
Yeah.
So, no, but then is the ghost attached to a house or a plot of land, like a physical place, or to a person?
There's ghosts that are attached to roads, Nancy. There's like, look at what we're talking about with Glenn
Well,
with the
that would
headless
be a
horseman and
physical.
all of that kind of stuff.
Cemeteries, name it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
they
a physical
hang out.
place.
They have like
So
if there's a car
so-
accident, the ghost will cross the bridge
I know,
at
I
night
know.
and freak
So
you
it's
out.
a physical
Bridges.
place, but not
Mhm.
a person. Like
And there's trolls. Trolls do exist. I'm just saying.
Theaters is another one that has a lot.
Yeah.
Oh, that's creepy. The
think
theater
more
thing is
that-
creepy.
so, ghosts are attached to a physical place for whatever reason, not to a person.
Well, supposedly, and I'm sure Matthew can
Oh, I
tell
get
us
what you're
his
saying,
thought, but I mean, a lot of it's
Nancy,
the
yeah.
emotional thing. Like a theater, there was so many different emotions, laughing, crying, different things there. A lot of people came and went through these things, so that's why supposedly, there's a lot of that. Hotels, I mean, just think of all the different people and emotions.
Oh my gosh.
fights
I
that's
could
went on
I
through
could
that
Yeah.
over the years.
I could
Well,
do a whole
yeah.
show just on haunted
Actors and
hotels. forever.
actresses who
Forever.
were
Yeah.
semi-famous or not famous or thought they would be or disappointed.
Mm.
all those
Nancy took a bath in
emotions.
the same bathtub as Clark
Yeah.
Gable. I mean, in Arizona,
Oh, we
so
did.
Nancy,
We
you've
Well,
been,
actually
he supposedly
did.
stayed on the route in Carthage, Missouri. You can go to that.
he's
bathtub
been
next time.
around.
Yeah.
He had that
No,
affair
that
with
dude's
that
been
one lady.
around.
What's her name?
But
And
we
he-
did. We stayed in what we were told was
The
his
Clark
place.
Gable,
where-
Nancy, you got in
Dude.
his bathtub.
I
the
know,
original
and
iron-
I was like, dude, this is too much fun.
She
But then
bathed
the-
with him. That's it.
I know. I was like, hi, baby. No,
Nancy
but
was
there's
one with.
no.
But okay, do you have that in Winnipeg? Did the Hollywood stars go up there at all?
Yeah, yes, we have had actually Clark Gable was hunting at it would be little bit west where the highway is, but an area called Delta Marsh. And there's supposed to be a ghost haunting the marsh, and there's a well-known hunting lodge
No way.
that's haunted. And Clark Gable stayed in that
He's
area and
haunting
went
the marsh.
hunting.
Wow, he's all over the
So
place.
you have a ghost in the marsh?
Dude.
See, now that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna haunt a marsh. I want to pick where I see. This is the thing. If I don't go up or wherever we go, like I want to haunt I
wanna
want to hang
haunt
out in nature.
certain
Like I want to
places.
be in the nature spot, and then when people are being all quiet and going to watch their bird and listening for the call, and listen, I bird watch, so like any bird watcher knows I'm just being a real brat. But like as they're getting their
Use
binoculars
that.
out, I just want to haunt them because it's funny and come
No.
into their binoculars and like go, hoo, I
No, but
don't know. But
why not
like,
haunt the people who are being loud and
but
noisy?
haunting a marsh is pretty cool though. I mean, you could be a mist or something.
Well,
So
it's
I
known
wanna-
for
I need
bird
to know
watching
this.
too. So
I need
My
to know
other-
about the ghost. Tell me about the ghost of the marsh. I need to know. I can't
I
stand it.
need to-
Like
I
I need to
love it.
know.
so the marsh, couple different ghosts. There's supposed to be one that's just
What?
a head that's seen at the
Oh.
marsh.
No.
So not a whole apparition, just a head, which
Oh,
apparently
boy.
people have seen out again when it's misty or foggy, coming out from the
Oh.
marsh.
I
And then
wanna
at the
see.
see.
hunting lodge, a lot of just strange things have happened. People will.
Oh,
It was used as a research center for a while by one of the universities, and one person, they were the only ones staying there that night, and they'd gone to bed, and then they heard a person come in with dogs, and they didn't think anyone else was coming, and they heard this person go up the stairs, and then
Cool.
no one was there, but they could hear the person, they could hear their dogs.
mm.
And often people were getting these reports of the dogs, or they would never find any paw prints though, but people would hear them barking, hear them going around. Well, the previous owner of the hunting lodge, who was actually sort of Canadian stereotype. He was a star hockey player back in the very early 1900s. He loved dogs and had a whole bunch of dogs. And there's a big pet cemetery next to this hunting lodge.
Oh my God.
Dude,
Oh.
no, dude. We used to live in Kenya, and Kenya has like so many ghost stories because they just in the
Part of the
cemetery.
tradition.
Yeah, and so you're inundated when we lived there, like if you went to a cemetery and you didn't see mist coming out of one particular grave,
No,
then there's
there's something about the
there's
mist.
something wrong with you.
There is
you know?
something about this. I mean,
Yeah.
Well-
look, the only time I haven't seen mist is when I've seen a snake. It's either a snake or a mist,
Nice.
period.
One of
That's it.
the one great story on the route, and Route 66 uses it also, but about probably 10 miles off the Jefferson Highway route, not much more than that, if it, maybe closer, up in northeast Oklahoma, near the border of Missouri, is the famous spook light, which is sometimes called the Tri-State Spook Light, the Joplin Spook Light, whatever. It's been going on for generations. People would go out there, this road out there. People would go out there, they drive their cars in the middle of the night. Sometimes hundreds of people would show up out there, and they would see this mysterious ball of light, sometimes traveling down the road towards them. Not in a normal manner, not just, it would kind of speed up and slow down and different things like that. There's been books. It was real. I mean, talking about real early books. I'm talking about books maybe the 1920s or 30s, written on where to go out and see the spook light. And it is, it's just part of the lore of that area. And you can still go there today. Some people still go there to try to find the spook light, which has been this part of that area's history for generations. So.
Wow.
I just want some of what they were drinking.
I know. we used to have a.
Well, you
South
can
Africa
imagine,
drink
I'm
called
sure there were
Stinking
some
Diesel.
dates, ladies that brought out on dates or different teenagers having fun. Let's go see the spook light tonight.
Oh, see, I know, right? And then the girls
how
all like,
much
I'm going to
fun
hold
is
on to your
that?
arm. Yeah. Oh, I want to ask you, Matthew, do you get that on your tours where people, like the girls are like, come on, I'm going to hold your arm. I'm getting scared. You know, like a first date thing, you go on a ghost walk. That's it. That's the perfect first date.
It's funny you mention it, because literally a couple nights ago I was doing a bike tour, which I do not too many, but a few a year, like haunted bike tours. And a person was on the tour, and she said, she said something about, going home to her husband, and said, actually, you were our first date on your walking tours several years previous. So I thought that was
cool.
kind of neat. So cool. I think a lot of people do. You get all different mixtures: families, tourists, as you said, people on dates, groups of friends, like students coming out.
Matthew, it's really neat you do bike tours, because I've done that also, and
I think
some of my most favorite tours.
The bike tour thing is really cool, and I think it's really growing in different areas of the country, and obviously in Winnipeg. But I have to tell you, this is the best bike thing in Winnipeg, and I can't give out the name or anything, but we know somebody in winter that turned their bicycle into a cooler scooter, and so it's a bicycle that has a cooler on it and goes from house to house, and everybody gets happy. That's what I'm just gonna say. Like it's a beer delivery service, and that's all I can say.
What's the weather up there like, Matthew, during when there's tourists?
Yeah, really, you need it though when it snows there.
The winters are tough here. October's not always too bad. It tends to be. Now I'm trying to think as in Fahrenheit, so I'm used to Celsius, but a little bit above freezing. Probably say in the 40s and 50s, especially near the end of October. Sometimes we'll get a warmer day. Not too bad for a tour.
Isn't it funny that we have Fahrenheit and centigrade? I mean, like you're just up the road from us. Like it's it's like, it's so funny how
Well,
we have all
it's
these,
about the
yeah.
British and the Americans. And when the
Yeah,
Americans
yeah.
decided we didn't want the British to tell
How-
us what to do, we changed everything.
How did Winnipeg, I'm just going like Canada, feel about the passing of the Queen? Like that had to be something for Canada.
Oh,
You know?
for sure. It was a huge, and I think just
Mhm.
historically, because she's our head of
Yeah.
state, and people
The
sometimes
monarch.
don't realize it's not the Queen of England in charge of Canada. She's the Queen
Right.
of Canada. Her title is Queen of Canada.
Oh,
Oh,
wow.
no way.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
She is our head of state. So
Really?
very, very big story here. And the
Wow.
monarchy is part of our constitution here.
Wow.
So it would, in fact, they said it would probably be harder for Canada to not have the Queen than it would be for Great Britain.
And she
As
she
funny as
visited
that
there.
sounds.
She's
No
visited there several
way.
times, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah,
many,
yeah.
many times she
Yeah.
visited Manitoba.
Huh.
Okay, speaking of England, I want to go back to
That's-
Marlborough because we have the Marlborough man in
Hmm.
Sunset Strip.
No, dude.
That's the only thing that
It's
was left
not
with Nancy when
dude.
we went to the Sunset Strip like a long time ago, and Nancy grew up out in that area in Los
Yeah.
Angeles, and that was the only thing that remained, the Marlborough man, cigarette
Yeah,
wise, and it's spelled differently
cigarette-
than the Marlborough Hotel that you're talking about. But that Marlborough, I mean, that's a British name. So I do want to, go to Glenn, our friend in England, and see what we can connect with this. And he's going to be called upon on
Well,
Jefferson Highway shows.
one connection comes is the original Winnie the Pooh is from Winnipeg, right?
Yeah.
No
Yeah, it
way.
was-
Oh, come on. You don't
That's
have Pooh over there? You don't
Probably
have
the most
Pooh?
famous Winnipegger. It was
Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah, it was a soldier had a
No
pet
way.
bear that he named after his hometown. And when he was being deployed, I guess he donated it or lent it to the London Zoo. And then that's where it was discovered and became part of the story.
The
So yeah,
author.
it's probably our
The
most
author's
famous
son.
celebrity.
So you sent Pooh from Canada to England. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
I
I was
just
just saying,
have to
it
be
was
like
in
that.
England. It was in the zoo there, and
Yeah.
that's where the stories were written for his son.
That's funny.
Yeah.
And
Aw.
there's a statue in Winnipeg of him, if I remember right.
Oh,
in the park.
we have to follow up on this story for
Yeah,
sure.
that's a
Now,
good.
what
It's a
about
great story.
Winnie
do
the
you know
Pooh.
who the Marlboroughs were, though? I'm gonna leave the Pooh alone for a second. I'll talk about Pooh all day.
No, I'm
but
centered on the
but
Pooh.
I'm sorry, I'm childish. I am so childish. But Matthew, the Marlboroughs, who were the Marlboroughs? Like, why was the hotel named it?
It
Like,
was named.
is it a family name or?
No, it was. You were correct with it going back to England. It's actually an
Yeah.
ancestor of
Mhm.
Churchill.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember, but yeah, he was basically a British lord, and I think it's just the
Mm.
strong connection. Initially, they were calling it the Olympia Hotel, but then I think they wanted a name that was going to stand out a little bit more, that people would maybe be able to remember better.
Oh, listen, the Olympia, that would have been Olympia Dukakis, and that would like tie to Natchitoches,
No.
Louisiana, because
No.
she acted in Steel
Oh.
Magnolias in Natchitoches.
No.
I'm just saying, I'm just
No.
bringing that for.
Sorry.
no, but
No.
okay, but we're gonna have to do
Sorry.
some of this stuff. I'm serious. We're gonna start tying all this history together on these. That's what's so cool about this highway. You're connected to Louisiana, and
Yeah.
and isn't that amazing in a way when you think about your history? That families from Winnipeg, you guys, it's time for you to leave. It's getting cold. You need to come south. I'm just saying, Matthew. you
I
need
would love to
say.
get Louisiana's. I haven't made it there yet, but that one I definitely would like to get
It's
to.
time. It's time. It's going to get cold. You need
Yes,
to go.
our winters. I love this city, but the winters are a challenge.
Remember what I
bet.
told you, Lisa? One of the original marketing pieces. It's somewhere somewhere in the Jefferson Highway. It always. So
Yeah.
you just got to pick when it is. Right now, it's not in Winnipeg. Right.
Yeah.
no,
No.
our summers are amazing here. It's usually
they
not
are.
too hot. Occasionally
they
it gets
are.
a little hot, but usually in the 70s and
Mm.
80s and sunny. So
I have to tell you, my my grandparents, my grandmother, half sister came from Winnipeg.
Yeah.
And she used to tell me stories all the time about Winnipeg.
So
then
I think we're gonna have to come up. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're gonna,
'cause
well, we're
we
gonna
gotta
go because it's the
research
highway.
it.
See, this is what
Yeah.
it is, Roger. You know what? I have to tell you this, Roger.
It's family connection.
We end up in places that we didn't realize we have family like history,
Yeah,
and we just
inherited.
end up in the most oddest places across the country that people go, why are you there? I'm like, oh, because we always we always find something that's cool, no matter what. I don't care where,
Oh,
there's
yeah.
something cool. And we'll always find it. And people are like, well, why the heck are you there? And we're like, I don't know. And then later we'll
'Cause
find
it's
out
fun.
we have family ties, which I think when you talk about
It's
ghosts
weird.
and stuff, it's weird. How is that? How is it that you're drawn to that? So I think there is a DNA thing. And when you look at the highway and families driving up and down since 1916, or yeah, right, 1916, that
Mhm.
I mean, that's over 100 years of family history. And I think it's really cool because the kids learn something about road tripping. And it
Mm.
wasn't road tripping with fancy hotels, and some of them were
No.
camping. Some of them were staying in fancy old, like the historic
Right.
hotels we're talking about, and getting spooked at night by ghosts, which is cool, and headless horsemen and whatever. I don't know. But, you know, it's
Oh,
cool.
nice.
This is really cool history. So everyone's history of these travelers going up and down that corridor, your
Come
family
alive.
history is there, and you need to go back and redo that. You need to reconnect because your DNA does it. And I'm not getting woo woo, but I'm getting woo woo on you. Go reconnect with your family history
Well-
and see if your family did it. Because I bet you they did. Somebody from
The
Oklahoma,
thing is,
maybe Roger's family went to Winnipeg. You know, you
But
never
the
know
thing
until you
is,
dig into your roots.
people kind of feel history is boring because when you're in high school, at least when I was in high school, the most boring thing to me was history.
That's why we have Matthew and Roger.
And
make it
no,
alive.
and that was on the teachers and how they just sat there with their nose in a book and read stuff. You know,
Matthew,
and
don't tell me
they
you're a
didn't-
history teacher and gonna yell
No.
at us later, right?
no, but they
No.
didn't make it come alive. But
Yeah.
later on in life, when I started going and traveling, travel is such a great thing because then you start learning about things. You'd be standing at somebody's graveside, or you'd be looking in an art place with pictures and paintings and stuff. And then you start to put history together in your mind, and you realize how, number one, how important it is and how much it means to you when you embrace it. But you had to get out of, at least for my generation, you had to get out of the history class. Sorry, teachers back then, but dudes, seriously. What should have been exciting should not be a teacher reading from a book when the nose in the book and never making it come alive. Should not
Mm.
be that way. And so if your history teacher is like that, don't take it like that's history.
Move,
That's
go
not.
travel, go travel,
Go travel,
go travel.
go see, go experience, even in your own neighborhood, go travel in your own neighborhood.
Yeah,
To
go
see
look at
your
the
own
architecture
history.
of a house. All these historic,
Absolutely.
all these, you know, homes on historic registers. You have that in Winnipeg too. It's like so weird, Matthew. We're talking to you like you're like in this really crazy far out foreign
I know,
country, and
this
you're
is
just
weird,
like you
sorry.
are on our doorstep, you know.
But-
But do you have like a historic register of like of homes?
you
too?
can have like national historic sites, and then there's also sometimes provincial or city designation. So similar program, little
You're
bit
so
different,
British.
but yes.
Provincial.
And Winnipeg, I would also say, is very British too in Canada. There's a strong connection sort of to those traditions here that you might not have the same in other parts of Canada. So
Oh, well, thank you so much for joining us. We're so glad you joined it, and come back again, please. We want to
Yes,
dig
that's
into
great.
your books too, and come back on any show of ours and the highway. We've you know, if you're going to go to Winnipeg, you've got to call Matthew. So give everybody your website again so that they can connect. I know you do most of your walks. It's winnipegghostwalk.com, right? I
Yeah,
got that part.
that's the website, winnipegghostwalk.com, and they can find the books are Haunted Winnipeg and Haunted Manitoba, which they
Cool.
can either find. Great Plains Publishing is who puts them out, but I believe they are available online. Probably a little easier in Canada, but I know they were carried in the US for a bit too. So
Ooh, so
Awesome.
excited to do
So
that.
when we come up there, you'll take us on a ghost walk?
absolutely.
Oh, how
Cool.
cool.
We're
love
coming.
it.
We're going up. Like,
Because we're going to
Listen.
do the whole highway. So
Roger's going to get sick of us because we're going to knock on his door too. So Roger,
yeah, he's going to get
really, you know, what you're doing with the highway is so cool. And we're so excited because we're really, you know, we've got a couple trips outside of the highway, but like really our lives are going to be dedicated to the highway for quite a while. And I don't see why not, because like there's so much. And when Nancy and I started like working
Mm.
on this guide, and it's not online yet, but everybody, you'll be able to see it soon. And then I realized, you know, we talk about this 3-hour corridor off the highway. Like, you know, if you're going to drive from Winnipeg to New Orleans or you can do it piecemeal, whatever you want, right? There's this 3 hours within.
It's a
I
life journey.
didn't realize how much we have done off the highway. And I mean, there's so much and it's insane. Like, it's so
Mm.
cool. I mean, do you know that sliced bread comes from Missouri? Just off of the highway. I mean, I just think everybody should know that. Like, somebody created like, hey, everything is just
Winnie
like
the Pooh
sliced.
comes from
Yeah,
Winnipeg. So
I
exactly.
know. It's so, I
I
didn't
mean,
know that. That's so
and
cool.
Pooh that connects you to England with Pooh. I mean, come on. I mean, this stuff, this is this connection. And when you do these routes, and I just, there's something that opens your eyes and ears and your senses when you do these kind of things. And that's why we travel full time, is because you get sucked into a crazy vortex. And Roger and Arlene, who introduced us to Roger, you both need to be spanked, because now like this is our
Oh, hello.
no, I mean it like in a fun way. You know, you guys really have sucked us into this. And so thank you, because
No, I
this
love
is going to
it.
be the rest of our life. It's a highway up and down. I know it. And so Matthew will be seeing you, and we're going to be finally seeing our friends over in Winnipeg too. But yeah, we're coming to see you. We want to walk the streets of Winnipeg. I never thought I was going to say that, but we want to walk the streets of Winnipeg and look for ghosts. So hopefully that will be
Hey,
soon, sooner than later.
We have relatives up there.
Yes,
I know.
for sure. It's a really neat city. Though I do recommend, some people would say come in the winter, but I recommend spring, summer, or fall. So.
Yeah.
I'm not driving
We
through
know
the snow to get there.
we
Okay.
know
I'm
the
not doing that.
We know the
Yeah.
winters are, you know,
I have
up
learned how
north
to
are-
shovel snow and ice and all of that. And I don't really want to do that again. So, you know, this is the reason why the highway works.
Yes.
You come south at this time of year, you know, this is the time for you to come down to, you know, Louisiana. I'm just saying, Matthew, there's a lot of ghosts in New Orleans for you to check
Oh no,
out.
for sure. As I said,
I
it's
hadn't
on,
even got into
on my
New Orleans
list.
ghosts.
And you've got to go see Roger.
Yeah.
You know, you
Yeah.
got to go see Roger,
Okay.
and he'll take you to Belle Star's gravesite.
Yeah, that'd be okay.
That's awesome.
You've got to take us to the gravesite. Okay. We're going to
Yeah.
see
Oh, yeah.
you soon.
We'll go there.
It's going to be sooner than you think. And by the way, I think Nancy and I are going to actually make it to the Christmas festival in Natchitoches, Louisiana.
Okay.
Is
All right.
that cool or what for New Year's? I think it's going to happen this year. So, or New Year,
trying.
however you want to put it. So that's
Trying.
very cool. Everyone, we want to thank the Natchitoches CVB. You know, Arlene, she comes on our show. We do a show, actually recording on the show date for her. Every second Tuesday, we have our Natchitoches, Louisiana show. But everybody, go to natchitoches.com, and that's natchitoches.com. I wish it was easier to spell out, but it's a very historic name and it's a very historic place. It is the oldest settlement in the Louisiana Purchase. So check it out and keep up with the Jefferson Highway. Encourage people to become members. It's very cheap. I'm sorry, I didn't mean it cheap, Roger. It's really,
I understand.
you know what I mean? It's
Inexpensive.
cost effective. It is something to keep an association going and for keeping you connected on the highway. You get newsletters. It's very cool. And if you are in the tourism industry in any way, shape, or form, you should be part of it and start getting into the signage program and be part of that and have it on, you know, markers in your downtown. Like seriously, Matthew, can we call people in Winnipeg now? Like seriously, have Jefferson Highway markers like for the
I think
ghosts
that'd
to know
be,
to hang out?
I think that'd
You
be
know?
a great idea for sure.
Wouldn't you? I
Yeah.
mean, seriously, we need to have highway markers like it was back in 1915, and we need to revive this 100%.
I think
So
when you and I travel the whole route, we should have markers.
Well, we
Even
have a new signage program.
Okay.
We're working on. It's on our website.
Awesome.
But we have a few communities that have gone into it. Of course, some states in Iowa has the whole route marked, and Oklahoma will have the whole route marked next year. So
okay,
Yeah,
so
well, we're just
Jefferson,
gonna put a sign out that
Highway.
go, Lisa and Nancy were here.
we're trying
Yeah,
to get
so-
we're trying to make sure that they are somewhat similar.
Legit-
You know, yeah.
Yeah.
So they make
yeah, it has to,
we
it
have
has to
20
be,
different
yeah, so
signs.
everybody knows, like Route 66, it's
right.
gotta
Yeah.
be concurrent, yeah.
Yeah,
So
Absolutely.
jeffersonhighway.org, everybody is the website for the association. They're doing a great job and they really have a cool map. Go there, be part of it, whether you're a traveler or a CVB destination, an author, go be part of it because really this is something we can all be
awesome.
part of. It's an exciting time to be part of a revival of a highway. I mean, think about what Route 66 is today.
Mhm.
And
Get your
actually,
kicks.
and it took a
On
long
Route
time to get it back
66.
it was there, it kicked butt. Of course, again, wars happen, things happen in life, right? And then it got revived and it's like one of the most traveled routes in America. And this highway connects us to Matthew with ghosts in hotels and, the cooler scooter. I'm just saying, we could be
But-
going to Winnipeg to New Orleans in one trip or break it up. So this
But
is
we
one of
need a
those
motto.
iconic things.
We need a motto.
Well, it
get-
is.
like,
There,
Get your
It's-
kicks on Route 66. We need a motto for the highway.
Roger's going to give us the songs for all of this when we see him in Oklahoma very soon. But
Okay.
we're going to do this. So everybody keep up with this, get on it, get part of it, start traveling it, experiencing it. Jefferson Highway has an amazing Facebook group, a discussion group. Be part of that. Follow their page. Just type in Jefferson Highway on Facebook. You're on Instagram now, right? That's the other
Yes.
thing. You're on Instagram. So keep up with them
Awesome.
there. When you start, let me just say, it's the most beautiful rabbit hole you'll ever go down. So check it out and keep up with us at bigblendradio.com. We're here every fourth Thursday with the Jefferson Highway Association. And Roger, thank you, Roger.
Always. Thank you. Thank you, all
Thank
ladies.
you.
Thank you, Matthew.
Yeah, thank you, Matthew. Thank you for joining. Matthew, we will see you. We're going to come see you.
Yes, well, thanks for having me, and I'd love to show you around. So.
Oh my
Cool.
gosh. And I want your books. I want your books. I want to get all into, every single ghost. Like I want to know about it. Really what you're doing is cool because you're getting people involved in history and having a good time when they travel. That's like the perfect blend. Sorry, I had to say blend. It is perfect. And Roger, thank you for what you do with the highway and the Highway Association. Everyone, the Highway Association will be having their conference coming up in Mason City, right? Am I right? Mason City?
Mason
Iowa?
City, Iowa. Yes, June of next year, and we
Start planning.
probably should have registration up in a month or two, and it's going to be a really special conference.
Okay, so I'm gonna, I love to close with music. And so I ventured a little bit further than I should, to a little bit of Virginia borderlines and New Jersey, because we want to play a song called Indrid Cold. Now, Matthew, have you heard about Indrid Cold, the smiling man that
I'm
meets
not-
people on highways?
I don't think so, actually.
Oh, okay. So this gets a little paranormal. Have you heard about Indrid Cold, Roger?
No.
Okay, he's the Mothman. He's the smiling man. And this is a legend that's been off of the highways for years. And he meets people and he just has this big smile. And he pulled over a salesman one night and gave him the smile. And the salesman, who said, like, this is an other planetary person. And his wife thought he was nuts. And it was an alien, or maybe not. Maybe it was just a smiling man, but we'll find out. Take a listen to Indrid Cold. This is from Johnny Master and the Mama's Boys, but it is about a true legend of Indrid Cold. Take a look, Google him up, look up the Mothman. But here it is, Indrid Cold. Never Trust the Living is the album. You can also listen to that song, which would be appropriate. But Johnny Master and the Mama's Boys are from New Orleans, which is, of course, on the Jefferson Highway. So take a listen. Thank you, guys.